All right. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy day 3 of Nutrition Like a Mom Boss. I have a lot of value and content to share with you today, so I'm going to jump straight in. Just a quick reminder of what we're here for. We're going to be talking about how to eat healthy without all the restrictions, the weighing, the guilt, and the shame. And today is going to be a pretty deep dive. So I don't know if you want to take notes or whatever it is that you want to do, there's going to be a lot of deeper rooted stuff that we're going to be talking about. And I planned that for day 3 specifically, so you had a bit of warm up to it, and we didn't dive right into that right away. I have another free gift for you at the end, so make sure you stick around. This is a really practical. This is a really practical gift. I think the other ones were pretty practical as well. And if you missed the other recordings, you should have gotten all the recordings in the emails. If you haven't gotten them, please let me know. And the resources, the free gifts for each day are in those emails as well. So if for whatever reason you didn't get them, just make sure you let me know. And we're just going to remind you about our depleted Debbie here, which is basically who I'm speaking to. So she's so busy taking care of everyone else that she has little time for herself. She's tried so many different things when it comes to nutrition. And even if she has experienced success, it hasn't been sustainable. And she just kind of feels at war with food. And at some point, there's usually, if there hasn't been already, there's a breaking point where it's just like, I can't do this anymore. So either we give up or we start doing something that's maybe not as healthy for our bodies. And she just really wants to feel confident and not have it that dependent on what her health journey is. And then takes us to the reminder of empowered Emily, who has all these things. She loves her body. She's energetic, clear minded. She has that unshakable confidence. And she's a really amazing role model for her kids. And so this is what I've been speaking into over the past 3 days is the peaceful eating method that I've developed. And so we've talked about the restrictions and the crowding out. We've talked about the intuitive and mindful eating. Whoops, I highlighted the wrong one for this. And today we're going to be talking about these two things, historical and emotional eating, as well as simplifying meal prep. And all of these things together are what create that sustainable optimal health. So it's great to be healthy, but if we can get to a place where it's really sustainable, and I'm going to share with you guys how you can set yourself up for success. So make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to share with you some really clear steps so that you can get into this transformation. You can actually experience this transformation so that it is sustainable. That's where we make it sustainable, is when we are transformed, when we have these really amazing perspective shifts. I'm realizing that I have a really dirty camera. There we go. All right. So I'm going to jump right in because, like I said, I have so much stuff to cover. So I'm going to actually start with a simplifying of meals. And be ready for this, guys, because these strategies have been game changers for me in my life. And it's funny because my husband's a pretty good cook, but he's a little bit stubborn about his like meal stuff and how he prepares. So the fact that he's been able to take this on means that they are effective, because he's all about things being effective, and he won't make a change unless he really believes that it's going to be something that's worthwhile. So the first thing I'm going to say is making a weekly plan. Now, just bear with me because I know some of you guys are like, I can't do that. I'm not that person. I can't do that. But what I will tell you to lean into is the 10 or 15 minutes it takes you to make a weekly plan. I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't like doing it. I've been doing it for a while now and I still don't enjoy doing it. But whatever the 10, 15 minutes it takes me to do it is so worthwhile for me that I'm okay with leaning into that activity, even though I don't like it, because then it gives me so much more freedom from the other stuff that I don't like thinking about what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to make for my family all day, and that being a constant stress on my mind. Like doing the scramble at the last minute, it's like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and I'm trying to gather together ingredients only to realize, nope, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. Then we got to run out to the grocery store. So taking that 10 to 15 minutes actually saves me probably an hour, 2 hours, three, maybe even more of worry, of stress, of all those other things. And we actually, when my kids come home from school, we enjoy our time with them. We do special time. We spend one-on-one time with them. We have family time together because we've got dinner ready. We've got it prepared. We know what's going on. So we don't have to worry about that. We can actually relax and lean into the evening, which I'm telling you is such a beautiful gift. And it leads to really enriched relationships in your family. So all of this stuff overlaps. The other thing is to find or create a template. I may have a little hint for the free gift here. Um, but this has been what's so helpful for me. And actually, shoot, I meant to. I'll add it to the follow up email. I meant to take a picture of my whiteboard because I think sometimes we think the meal planning or the templates that we make or the whatever it is that you're going to do the kind of schedule needs to be like this beautiful, pretty thing on a chalkboard with like calligraphy, writing, and all that. I literally write it on my whiteboard. It's not pretty at all, but it's there. My kids can see it. My husband can see it. We all know what's happening. And I printed out a little 4 week template where I have kind of 7 different recipes for each, like for the 7 days of the week. And then I can literally just take that template and plug it into whatever the week is. Often I'll kind of overlap or I'll make changes, but I have that template there so I can look there, even if it's just a list. These are all the meals that my family likes. And you can just look at it, boom, 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 insert it. That's going to make your meal planning super, super simple. Okay, this is a really big one, and I'm actually going to be doing a resource specifically for this on my Instagram and my newsletter coming up in the next couple weeks, is preparing your proteins ahead of time. So what that looks like, I just made a big Instapot of chickpeas, and I strained them, and then I put them on a cookie sheet. I put them in the freezer, and then took them out of the freezer and put them in a giant Ziploc bag. Now I have chickpeas for 1 or 2 months, probably 2 months. We do the same with black beans and white beans. I do it with actually tofu, and then my husband does it with chicken, and sometimes he'll do it with steak. So that this is going to provide you with the flexibility, because I know one sticking point for people with meal plans is they're like, well, sometimes I don't feel like eating the meal that I plan. So first thing I'll say to that is you can move things around in the week. We'll do that often. Like I might have pasta planned for one day and then I'm like, my husband and I are like, we don't really feel like having that tonight. So we might switch it around and do like quesadillas that night or something instead. So you can feel free to move around, but at least when you do your meal plan, what I do is I do my meal plan and then I do my grocery list right there with my meal plan. So I can look at the meal that needs this, this, this. I put it right in my grocery list and then go. That will save you so much money too, I'll tell you. So it's gonna when they're prepared, you can also just be like, what do we feel like tonight? I feel like having chicken Caesar wraps. I already have my chicken prepared, so I just have to pull out the wraps, have my veggies, throw it all together. Perfect. So that makes it really easy. Also makes it really easy for when you're running late, you're getting home from an activity late, whatever it is, keeps you out of drive-throughs because it's really, if you have this stuff ready, it's going to take you 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes to prepare your meal. And then I also suggest the same for veggies. So you guys might know that in my fridge, I always have cut up veggies and I have a big salad. And basically, I just kind of replace it as we run out. I got to make a new salad today, but I'll make like 3 or 4 days worth of a big salad, or maybe 2 meals worth for our whole family of a salad. And that way, whatever we decide to make, we've got the veggies on the go. For the kids' lunches, I just open that up, pop them in their lunches. It's super, super easy, and none of this takes long. You can do this like as you're doing other things in the house. Often I'll make the proteins while I'm working. I'll like put them in the Instapot, I'll work away. When it comes out, put it in the strainer, let it sit in the sink. When that's done, I put it on the cookie sheet. So I'm doing it kind of passively throughout the day. Then the other thing too is really simplifying and overlapping your ingredients. So tip number 4, to simplify means, I don't know about you guys, but I used to feel like I needed to have like 5 different vegetables or more in each dish. It's really not necessary. Pick 2. Pick 2 vegetables, put them in your dish. You don't need to have that many where you're cutting up so many in one sitting and your cooking is taking super long. So that's one way to simplify. Another way to simplify is having like sauces or spices ahead of time. So, for example, we love to have pad thai, so often I'll make a big thing of the pad thai sauce, and then we can use it a couple of times over the following weeks. The other thing for overlapping ingredients is, and this is something that you're going to see in your free gift, is when you're meal planning, taking into account um, meals that have similar ingredients. So one thing that I love to make, 2 things that I like to make together are pad thai and quesadillas, because I use similar vegetables and just the cooking time for both of them. I can make them at the same time and it's really easy. So I've kind of learned that as I've gone. And I'll pair meals like that together that I know overlap really easily. So for example, I know that in the pad thai and the quesadillas, I'm going to put broccoli and peppers, and then sometimes I'll add carrots to the pad thai, like just shaved carrots, which is super easy. But I know that I'm going to use those as the main vegetables, so I can cut all those up at once. I make my pad thai, and then as we're eating the pad thai, I basically throw everything for the quesadillas in a pan and I just let it cook on low while we're eating. And then I can just throw whatever spices and then throw it in the fridge. The next day, all I have to do is put them in the quesadillas. So overlapping ingredients is really, really helpful for saving time, but it's also just looking at not trying to have the most epic meal every single day if you've got a really busy home life. If you know you're working, got kids, all that sort of stuff. You don't need to have a crazy meal with a million vegetables in it. Just pick a couple. We're like we sometimes are just like we put out the fresh vegetables. Sometimes we'll put out pita and hummus, like on those days where you're really rushed, or I'll make hard boiled eggs or something like that. We just put it out like it's a big lunch. Sometimes for us, that's better than maybe going through the drive through or something like that. Making and using freezer meals is another tip. You'll get this in the gift as well. But just anytime you're cooking more, and then you can freeze it, but then actually using the freezer meals, labeling them before you put them in the freezer. I label them and put the date, and that way we can just easily find them. But then when I do my meal plans, at least once a week we have a freezer meal. So that's planned right into it. And that's another really easy way to simplify your meals so you don't feel like you're just in the kitchen for half the, like sometimes it feels like being in the kitchen is another full-time job, which is definitely not what I personally want. I don't know about you guys, but if you're looking to simplify, these tips are really going to be helpful. Also, giving yourself permission to eat out and planning your eating out. So that might look like, oh, Friday night we're going to eat out. Put that in your meal plan. You know it's there. Again, it can be moved around if things are rushed or whatever. But sometimes people think, oh, I want to eat healthy. I can't eat out. You absolutely can. There's really healthy stuff you can get when you're out, but you can also get the stuff that's not as healthy. And when you build it into your weekly meal plan and it can all balance out, it's going to make you feel more at ease with, like, so for a lot of families, like one or two nights a week to eat out is what is doable for them. Like cooking more than that is just not doable. And just remember that it's a process. Maybe eventually you do want to be cooking 7 meals at home or using the freezer meals and all that stuff 7 times a week, but start small and grow into it. This is something I speak a lot into in my coaching. So if it's something that you kind of want to dive deeper into, just let me know and I can give you some options. And then this one I haven't tried yet, but I definitely want to. I have one friend in mind that I want to do this with. We eat similarly. It's a meal exchange with friends. So that might look like you making a big chili and a curry, and then those friends making like a pasta and I don't know, some sort of like veggie burgers or something like that, making those homemade. So you make double the amount and then you switch. So instead you prepare 2 meals, but you guys both end up getting 4 different meals. Even if you do 1 meal a week or something like that, is that something that can be really cool and really good with time saving. And then the last one, I'm not going to go into detail about this, but basically syncing your cooking with your cycle as a woman. Um, in a nutshell, it's choosing to cook when you're in your productive, your luteal phase, your productive phase. And again, that's something that I dive deeper into my coaching. If you don't know about cycle syncing, I really highly recommend looking into it. It's a big game changer for women. I recommend all women read and learn about cycle syncing. It's pretty powerful. I just brought up this testimonial again because we're going to transition into the emotional and historical eating. So just reminding of this client who was talking about realizing that she was hating on herself, quote unquote, in kind of indirect ways by choosing different foods to satisfy different feelings. And then her being able to realize that she was not actually looking for those foods. She was looking for comfort, she was looking for validation, and she was looking for nurturing. So just to transition into the historical and emotional eating, and I apologize, I'm going fast, but I realized I'm like, I should have done a fourth day because there's like so much stuff in here. But this is kind of to scratch the surface, and if you guys want to dive deeper, I'm going to give you options at the end as to how you can do that. So starting with historical eating, this is such an interesting concept. I am like flabbergasted and have become so inquisitive about this topic. It's basically what's our historical connections to eating? What has happened in the past with eating in our lives that actually shape our decisions around eating today? So one of those things is past connections to food. So this can look like a few different things. The first thing, it could be automated habits. So a lot of our habits as adults, you'd be really surprised that we still actually have a lot of habits connected to our past. So this might look like eating like cereal for breakfast, like the certain things that we choose for breakfast. Oh, those are breakfast foods in our eyes, and we think that's just what it is. But if you have traveled anywhere else in the world, you'll see that depending where you are, there's different kind of traditions for food. Automated habits can also look like, oh, after dinner we eat dessert. So maybe you don't actually need or want dessert after dinner, for example, but it's become such a regular habit that you're just used to doing that, and it just becomes automated in the sense that you don't think about it. So those are some examples of automated habits. Um, then there around past connections to food, there could be a general energy or perspective. If you had a parent, for example, that loved cooking, was really into like healthy, nutritious foods, you might feel this really positive, beautiful energy around food. If you had another parent who maybe had an eating disorder, you might have negative, resentful feelings around food. If your parents really controlled, um, your parent or guardian really controlled, was really controlling around what you ate, you might have this like inner rebel and this inner struggle around food. So creating awareness for this is really, really powerful because when you have awareness, you can choose to move forward in a different way. Often we don't even know these things are happening. This was like mind blowing for me when I started reading about this. And then there's specific foods that draw out specific emotions. One of my favorite examples to use for this is grandma's soup. So you have this certain type of soup, even if it's just chicken noodle soup that's from the container, but she used to always make it for you. That draws out this feeling of comfort, of unconditional love, of support, whatever it is. Sorry. And this is a really, really strong one. A really good thing to be aware of is that certain emotions draw out certain foods. And I always use the example, and this will go into emotional eating, but for when I would used to eat Timbits, it drew out this emotion of like feeling connected to my mom specifically. So it's kind of interesting for that to bubble up and for me to have awareness around that. And like I said, this creates space. All of this creates space for awareness. Awareness is power. Remember yesterday we talked about how the answers are not outside of you. The things that you need to change around your eating, whatever, your healthy lifestyle, anything to do with your healthy lifestyle, it's not that you need to find a different program, a different diet or whatever. It's you need to be searching within. There's answers within that are going to help you heal your relationship with food. And I will say this is that even if you are eating healthy, it doesn't necessarily mean you have a healthy relationship with food. When I speak to healthy relationship with food, I'm talking about that ease, that feeling of connection, that feeling of knowing how to eat intuitively, not feeling guilt or shame, not feeling like there's like junk food or whatever, but just being really connected to what is good feeling food, what is bad feeling food, and being pretty neutral about that whole experience. And being able to lean into what's traditionally called as healthy eating without a bunch of emotions kind of interfering with that. So with that being said, we're going to go into emotional eating. This is my little puppy, Juno. She's not a puppy anymore. So emotional eating, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, emotional hunger versus physical hunger. So emotional hunger will tend to come on really suddenly and will only be satisfied with specific foods. So for example, all of a sudden you just need to have those cookies and nothing else, like the fruit is not going to satisfy you. It's like you need to have these specific cookies. That's a really good hint that that's emotional eating. Emotional eating is often a way to suppress or soothe negative emotions. That could be boredom, that could be fear, that could be anxiety, whatever it is. Any of those negative emotions, often we'll use emotional eating to suppress that. And we often, what's super interesting is remember we talked about restrictions, the day one is emotional eating. We tend to go for those foods that we've restricted ourselves from. So I shouldn't eat ice cream. Ice cream's not good for me, whatever it is. And as soon as you're stressed or you're bored or you're feeling lonely, that's the thing that you need to help satisfy. One thing I will say about emotional eating, which I didn't mention before, is that I think it's kind of assumed that it's a bad thing. It's not necessarily bad. It can actually be a really effective tools, especially when we're going stuff that feels through stuff that feels really hard. But when it becomes a little bit of a problem is that when it's the only tool that we have in our toolbox. So we want to be able to kind of interrupt this pattern because often emotional eating is automated. We want to be able to interrupt that pattern, reach for some different tools perhaps first, and then if we need to go to emotional eating for whatever reason, it's totally fine. We just want to have multiple tools in our toolbox. And as I just mentioned, it can become automated. So you're stressed, the cookie's in your mouth before you've even thought about it, right? Like I know I used to do that all the time. Um, and what happens too is that often another hint is that you're not actually eating with enjoyment. It's just like a reaction and you're just looking for whatever the chemical satisfaction, whatever that emotion that you're looking to satisfy. It's just you're doing it before you even realize that you're doing it. Emotional eating can also serve as a distraction. So you're really worried about something, you're waiting to hear news about something, a family member is sick. We can often use food as a way to distract ourselves from what we're dealing with emotionally. And I spoke to this the other day when we talked about asking yourself, am I hungry? And then looking into emotional nourishment that you might be lacking. Often emotional eating will try to fill the gaps of different areas of our lives where we actually need nourishment. So if you're feeling lonely, we might use food as a companion. It's very reliable. But actually what we need is to dive into some nourishment in that in the relationships in our lives. And then one thing I wanted to mention about emotional eating, and this is why we want to have some other tools, is that we think that we want that food. So we think that, or the drink. So we really want that glass of wine. I want to feel, I really need to relax and unwind. I want the glass of wine. But actually, it's not the wine that we want. It's the feeling we think the wine is going to bring us. So again, creating that awareness, we can break that down and start to brainstorm and be really playful and experiment to see if there's something else that actually could satisfy or bring us that feeling without it being food, because usually the food almost always the food will satisfy whatever that feeling is you're looking for very temporarily, but then we realize it's not sustainable, and then you're seeking that comfort again, and that's when we can end up kind of get into binge eating sessions, or just like basically being in that constant cycle of needing something emotionally, eating something to try to fill that void, then feeling guilty that you did that, feeling ashamed. So then we restrict ourselves from eating the food that we ate. And then we are feeling the restriction. We have that inner rebel come out. We have emotions come out again. And then we eat the food and go back onto that guilt, shame, restriction cycle. So so a lot of the work that I do is helping break that cycle, creating awareness around that, and then just arming people with the tools to be able to move forward in a different way. So how do I make a change? So maybe you're sitting here and you're like, oh man, like I for sure have stuff with historical eating, with emotional eating. When I was speaking to the Timbits, I didn't kind of elaborate, but what I realized in my own life is that I had no control over Timbits, and I didn't actually enjoy eating them. Like I was like, these actually don't taste that good. And when I started to do this work and dive deeper, I realized I had that connection to my mom and to that feeling, the feeling of connection with my mom. And then that there was a gap in my relationship with my mom, and that I was really just yearning that connection with her. And so I've been able to actually lean into our relationship, lean into building that connection, which has really released. I don't even remember the last time I had a Timbit, and I have control. If I do have one, before it was like, good luck, kids. If you like, we buy the Timbits for the kids, good luck. Mommy's around the Timbits, you're not getting one. So that was really cool. Super simple example, but really powerful. So how do you make a change if you're like, man, like this is me, I need to do something about this, or I want to learn more about this, whatever it is. So you can use a lot of the tools that we've talked about in this masterclass. So that food journal that I sent you is really great for creating awareness around emotional eating, intuitive eating. Remember, there was like different spaces to be able to track your emotions and your thoughts when you're eating. That's really, really powerful. Having pattern interrupts in place. So the biggest one is just starting to practice the power of the pause before you eat, before you put anything in your mouth, practicing that pause. Okay, am I hungry? What nourishment do I need right now? Just even asking that question, starting with that, and just allowing whatever to bubble up is so powerful. Um, Leaning into the no restrictions. Remember, it just creates, you're playing a mental game that you're going to lose, and it creates a lot of friction in your relationship with food that's just not going to be helpful over time. I already just talked about the am I hungry question. using the crowding out method, which is, again, just a reminder, focusing on what you want to have more of and focus on including more of those things versus being really focused on what you shouldn't have. And then also kind of adopting this mentality that failure is feedback. So if something doesn't go as you want it to go, you can actually let go of the feelings of guilt and shame if you can take it as like a really interesting bit of information, some facts that you've learned. Oh, interesting. After I visit with my family, I tend to come home and eat a tub of ice cream. That might give you an indication you're feeling stress and anxiety over those family situations and that you need to maybe implement a different tool to be able to release whatever just happened with the family. That's just an example. But just learning from all of these scenarios, even something as simple as, oh, that was too much. I ate too much. Next time I'm going to try to dish myself less or whatever it is. Not because you shouldn't eat that much, not because you need to portion control, but because your body wasn't feeling its best with that certain amount of food. And then the last way is to get support. And this is what I'm so passionate about. And I'm actually super excited to share with you guys. I'm launching a brand new group coaching program. It's called Women of Wellness. I'm going to tell you about it in a second. But getting support is what's going to help you really make that transformation if you feel like you're being called to do that. And this is all about investing in yourself. This is something I've been leaning into a lot over the past couple of years, and it's just been so, so rewarding for me. And so what this looks like is investing in yourself. You're making a commitment. So that something that's been super powerful for me is hiring coaches or being part of programs because there's a financial commitment attached. And when I make a good, hefty financial commitment, I will show up in a very different way than if it's free or if it's just something I kind of do here and there. You're also making a statement like, I believe in myself. I know I can do this. I'm committing to doing this. And what's really, really valuable is when you have like appointments that you have to show up for. That was so effective for me in coaching. I have an appointment that I have to show up for. And this is a regular scheduled appointment for me to work on me or for me to work on something specific about me. So, so powerful. Already when you do that, you make a huge shift in your healing because you're making a choice to do just this, is to invest in yourself. It's going to help set you up for success because you're going to have the tools you need. You have those regular appointments. You're going to be held accountable as well. And then what's really amazing, I have people ask me all the time, how do I help my kids? How do I help my partner? How do I, you want to help people in your life. The best way to help anyone in your life is to lead by example. You want somebody to eat healthy, that somebody that you care about, do it for yourself. Model that. Show how happy it makes you. Show how much more at ease you are, how much joy you have, right? Like lean into that. Even if you don't feel like you're in a terrible place with it, lean into making those improvements, into thriving instead of just surviving. That is really the most effective way that you're going to be able to help anyone in your life, especially your kids. So we have a decision to make here. So thinking about, are you ready to make peace with food? Are you ready to transform your life? And where do you want to be in 6 months? But more importantly, who do you want to be in 6 months? And so what I want to share with you is this Women of Wellness program that I literally am launching today. And so I'm excited because you guys are the first people to hear about it. And so what this looks like, it's like a group coaching. And it's 16 value-packed group meetings. So it's weekly meetings. If you can't make the live meetings, not to worry at all. You're going to get access to all of the recorded calls. The content is going to be curated specifically for the group that I'm with. So you guys can ask questions and I'll be like, yeah, I will create a specific session for you about this specific thing. And then you also, on top of the group meetings, you're going to get 3 private coaching calls. So that looks like beginning, middle, and end. So it's 4 months total, 16 weeks. And I've just put the values in there. And then you're also going to get access to my Sisters in Health accountability community. It's basically, I have time slots where you show up to do work, whatever work you need to do. That's working out, meal prepping, reading, resting. But it's your appointment with yourself to care for yourself. Then you're going to have access to a private Facebook community. And then this shouldn't be here. So we'll just skip past that. So these are the investments here. There's two options. There's a one-time payment. If you were talking to me about this before, I've put them in Canadian prices because everybody in this is Canadian. It's just easier for you because normally they're in US. But this is the one-time payment, and this is the so 111.57 Canadian, and then the monthly payments you can do 319. There's a discount, a little bit of savings for the one-time payment. I think it's like $120 or something difference. But whatever works best for you. And there's these QR codes if you want to kind of scan them now and jump in. Um, but I'm going to send you all of this info in the follow-up email as well. And then this is what you have to do. So if you feel like you're ready to jump in and you want to do this, number one is to reserve your spot so you can use those QR codes or the stuff I'm going to send you in the email. I'll send you links. Then you're going to book a discovery call. I'm going to send you that information as well. You can also access it on my Instagram or on my website. And then our first session is July 6th. So you're just going to join us and you're going to jump in. The sessions are going to be 20 to 30 minutes. And then I'm going to leave time for questions after each session. And then again, if you can't make the live calls, you're going to have access to this whole bank where you can go back and listen if there was something that you need to review, or if you missed it, you want to go back and make sure that you catch up. You're going to have access to all that in these online modules, which I'm super, super excited about. So if you guys have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to stick around for a couple of minutes now if you have questions. And then also, I'm just going to skip right. I'm going to send you this free gift. So this free gift that I was talking about is the Cook Twice and Eat All Week resource. So I'm giving you 1 week, and I am working on a 4-week resource, which I'm really excited about. But I'm going to give you 1 week of a full meal plan and recipes with it as well as a grocery list. So you can even just for this coming week, print this out or save it on your phone, and you've got your meals ready to go for the week for your family. So I'm super excited to share that with you. So I'm going to go back to this page so that you guys can access this if you want. And thank you guys so much for joining me for day 3. Please let me know if you have any questions and keep an eye out in your email. Oh, one last thing. I am also sending a resource. I wanted to try to put how to curate healthy relationships with food for your kids, but I just could not fit it in this. There's way too much content. So I have a resource I'm gonna send you. If you want that resource, actually, can you just send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email and simply just type kids? And if you want that resource, I'll send it to you. Just email me or message me kids and I'll send that to you if that's something that you want. Thank you guys so much for joining me.